Hello there, Maverick Currency traders. This is Rob Reinhold. I'm joined by August Sharmat. This is the Currency Room, and we just got done with our first week of November. We had a pretty decent October. We're looking forward to a nice November here as well. In this video, we're going to be going over the news of the week. We're going to go through some currency analysis. We're going to take a look at the market where it is right here, right now. And what we do at Maverick is we score everything from a +3 in the strongest to the -3 to the weakest. And that tells us where we're going to go trade because we like to pair up the strongest currency against the weakest currency. That is our goal every single trade we make.
Disclaimer. This video was created for professional Forex and crypto traders. Maverick Currencies is a proprietary trading firm that employs professional traders around the world. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits they generate. All trades and analysis in this video are for professional traders only. If you are interested in becoming a professional Forex and currency trader for Maverick, click the apply button in the video description. Let's get ready for next week.
Let's talk about the equity market first. We saw equities have their worst week since April. Now, it was only about a 2.5% down week, and I know that isn't that big of a deal, but that's how strong the market has been since April. The fact that we have not had a more than 2% down week since April just shows you what kind of a bull market we've been in. Volatility is picking up, which means we're going to see more volatility go to all other markets across the world. We saw the Kiwi really just get hammered here. Kiwi has been almost in free fall lately, and we're getting extreme levels on Kiwi. We'll take a look at it. We still like the Kiwi short, but whenever you get these extreme levels, your spidey sense should really be telling you, hey, you know what? This is, again, unprecedented levels and where you typically can get some really big bounces or you can get some really nasty falls. All it means is that Kiwi is risky here. Now, that doesn't mean you can't trade it. It just means you have to really respect the risk. And as I said, that volatility is going all over. It's hitting crypto as well. We had Bitcoin pierce below 100,000 a couple times this week. It ended up bouncing and really holding that 100,000 area, but all the cryptos have been extremely weak across the board. Let's talk about what happened last week in the world of economic reports and central banks. Let's first talk about the RBA. Okay, so the RBA came out and they said, hey, you know what? We're not going to cut rates. That was what was expected. They were a little bit more hawkish than the market expected. So the Aussie actually did strengthen a bit after this, but the constant selling in equities, since Aussie is a risk-on currency, it just got beaten down over the week. It wasn't down much, but it was definitely down for the week. Let's take a look at some of the US data because this was pretty much the only week we're going to get US data because these were private reports. So you can see the manufacturing number was weaker than expected, but the manufacturing services much stronger than expected. That's what we've seen in America is that the services PMI has been really strong and the manufacturing PMI has been weak. I talked about this ADP report saying that since we're not getting the government report, this is by default the employment report of the month. And you can see it was better than expected. The equity markets liked it initially, but it sold off. We saw bond yields and the dollar all move higher this week. We then heard from the Bank of England. And I said, it's going to be interesting to see what the votes are. Look at that. Ankit, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been trading currency since 2008. Have you ever seen a 4 to 5 vote on a central bank?
Not at all. I must say that I was kind of surprised to see that as well. So definitely that's a new one for me.
It just goes to show that it is divided at the Bank of England whether or not they should cut rates or whether they should stay at 4%. All that means is that the next meeting is likely to be very volatile, meaning you don't really know what the votes are going to be. If the votes are there, we're going to see big moves either way. And then the last thing I want to talk about is Canadian employment report. Wow, good job, Canada. That's a killer report. And I think the biggest surprise is the unemployment rate dropped 0.2%. So CAD definitely strengthened off of that news on Friday. So let's take a look at the broad markets. Let's take a look at all the numbers because we always want to understand all the correlations going on. We understand that some currencies are correlated with equities. We've seen that the cryptos have been more correlated with equities over the past year, and we'll take a look at some of them. So as we talked about, stock markets were down and the crypto markets were down even more. Gold really held in nicely. It was down early in the week, and it stabilized and actually crawled higher the last couple of days of the week. We take a look at the S&P. Last week I talked about how this price action was very troublesome, where you get gap higher and sell-offs. This day was a gap lower and they sold to the lows. This next day, gapped up, fell apart, gapped up, fell apart. That's not good price action. I said, I think we're going to see a retracement down to at least the 20-day moving average. You can see we got there really quickly. We got there basically on Tuesday. Wednesday, we had a little bounce, but look at that. Long upper shadows telling you the sellers came in at the end of the day. A little gap down on Thursday, but the selling hit, and you can see gap down, more selling, and here we are looking to close right around the 50-day moving average. This is my line in the sand, 50-day moving average, meaning if the market is above that line, I'm net bullish. If the market is below that line, I'm net bearish. It's closing right there. Basically, toss a coin. Toss a coin. We'll see what happens next week. But there's volatility, and this is why we're getting volatility. Remember, when people are getting what they expect, there's low volatility. And that comes to whatever a central bank does, whatever an economic report comes at us, whatever earnings reports come at us. When people don't get what they think it should be or what's been priced in the market, you get volatility. And here we are. We were very convinced, the world was very convinced we're in a bull market that's never going to end. All of a sudden here on Friday, it's looking like it might end. Ankit, do you have a strong call on the equity markets, what we're likely to see this week?
Not at all. I mean, I must say that. I mean, if you take a look at what happened even early October, that was a pretty big candle. It looks like market's going to tumble, and then again, market sort of rallied, made a new all-time high. So the big question really is, where we are right now. Is this going to be again same buying the dip opportunity, especially as we running into the year end? Are we going to get another Santa Claus rally? So I think that's really the big question here. So now, when we talk about fundamentals, like we still don't have a whole lot of economic data. There's not a whole lot of chatter from the central bank, and if just looking at the market backdrop, I think this is just a technical pullback to me. Now, if we are going to turn really lower, I think what we need to see is that it actually makes a lower high and lower low. Now, if you really look at this whole pattern, we made a higher high, and even if we just bounce off from here, like it's still a higher low. Now we need to make a turn that change of that trend. We need to see a lower high and then lower low. I think that's the better short to me than right here, because what we have seen so far is that every time market dips like this, so a lot of buyers sort of come into the markets. So I don't have a strong call here as we are in this last stretch of this year. I think if markets sort of could find some support here, and if we are going to change a trend, I would like to see a lower high and a lower low. I think that will be more of a confirmation to me that the trend is changing.
Okay, how long have you been trading for now?
Since '08, so yeah, a long time.
Well, there's a very famous saying in the market. There's old traders and there's bold traders, but there's no such thing as an old, bold trader. So Ankit was exactly right. I'm in the same boat. I have no idea. I've been trading now for 28 years. I have no idea what's going to happen off this. This is truly 50-50. I think it's a coin toss, and I'm not going to stick my neck out until I see either a nice rally that has continuation candles, candles that actually close on the highs. And what I want to see is maybe some long lower shadows where they recover. That to me would tell me, oh, that is a bounce to where we're likely to go, at least go retest some new highs. If we get candles like this. If we start getting candles like this, yeah, that's bad. I don't like that at all. So what Ankit said, if we can get a bounce off this and then we fail, yeah, I'm all about being short this market. But until that happens, I am going to just sit there and be a spectator. I'm not going to stick my neck out one way or the other. Now, what that does mean for currencies is we have uncertainty. We have this uncertainty of what's going to happen with equities. And what that does is that brings money into the safer currencies. So you can see the yen, that has been the currency of safety for the last, since '08. It got the biggest bid. It did really well. The euro and the Swiss franc, which only this year have been the currencies of safety, they also got a bid. The dollar got a bid, and the pound had a nice bounce off of that BOE meeting. But where was the weakness? It was in the growth currencies. Now, CAD actually had a nice bounce back on Friday, but you can see still underperformed. If the markets stay weak, I would expect to see another week like this. If the markets bounce, I expect to see the exact opposite. I was going to say except for the Kiwi, but the Kiwi is going to bounce. If the markets bounce up, the Kiwi is going to bounce. I don't like it as a trade, but it's going to bounce. Same thing with coming over here to crypto. If equities continue to stay weak, crypto's down. If they bounce, crypto's up. And probably Ethereum has the biggest bounce of them all. I don't like the Ethereum trade because it looks the worst on the chart, but we'll take a look at all these here in just a second. Sometimes the stock market is correlated to currencies, and sometimes it isn't. This is one of those times where I believe it is. So here I am going into the week thinking I'm better off flipping a coin trying to determine what the stock market is going to do. Well, then if I think everything is correlated to that, yeah, that's pretty much the same thing. I'm flipping coins now. I need to be very cautious in a market like this. But if we start to see the right price action, we can absolutely jump on things. Here is the crypto ETF, and you can see we bounced. Sorry, not the crypto ETF, but the basket we have. We bounced, but it's nothing more than a bounce off of a new bottom. And you can see we're right back into overhead resistance here. I mean, we could even come up into this area up in here on a bounce. It doesn't mean anything until we get a retracement with a higher low and then some higher highs. Just the opposite of what Anka talked about in the equity markets. So crypto longs are just, they're a bad trade here. Now look, I'm not saying you won't make money, but what I'm saying is if you make this trade 100 times, you won't be happy with your results. Moving on to the bond market. This is one of the things that's putting pressure. 4.15% after the Fed cut rates. Here we have rising up to 4.15%. We cooled off a little bit at the end of the week, but this is why the dollar has been stronger than a lot of other things. Next week, again, no US data because of the government shutdown. We've got Aussie employment report right here on Wednesday. And then we've got a GDP report out of the UK, and you can see that's it. Completely ignore US data. It's not going to come out here. Very quiet on the calendar. Who I miss this claimant count change. So UK has some good news. UK and Aussie, the only places where there's going to be some news this week. No central banks. We've got a market that is a 50-50 market here. Let's go in and look at the currencies to see if we can find anything clear. But the overall macro view, in my opinion, is muddy. Very, very muddy. And I don't think it's going to give us many clues early on in the week. With that being said, later in the week, I think there's going to be some great setups. Here is Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is not really bouncing off the bottom. That's not great bouncing price action. And we'll see some of the other cryptos that are having much better action. We made a new swing low, which again, I don't like. Moving averages are both falling. Everything about this is saying lower prices are ahead, most likely, on Bitcoin. Will that happen? I don't know. But again, if you follow charting and technical analysis, everything about this chart says lower prices are likely to be here. So not looking to buy Bitcoin at all. Here's a bounce. And that's a much better bounce. That's a much healthier bounce at a much healthier level. Look at that. Okay, we didn't make a new swing low. I don't love any of the cryptos here, but if I'm looking at this Bitcoin Cash, I'm thinking 470 to 550 is the range. You can play that range. If you want to play a range-bound trade in cryptos, okay. You can see we're starting to get a nice turn here off the bottom in the 13 EMA. We got RSI finally above 50 for the first time in about a week. It's an okay play, but it's not great. Here's Ethereum. It has been the weakest. It's been awful. Not great price action. Now you can see we're starting to get long lower shadows at the bottom. So it is telling us people are nibbling in the 3,200 to 3,300 area. They're nibbling there. That doesn't mean it's going to rocket back higher, but I do like this little bit of floor. I don't like this because there's other trades that are much better, but it does look like it's finding some bottoms here at 3,200. And here's Litecoin. This is what you want to see. Okay, we made a slightly lower bottom for a day or two, but look at that. Long lower shadows on the bottom. Boom. When the buyers came into the market, it's now back up to 2 to 3 week highs. This is the only crypto we can say that about. Big turn here. So if you're going to go long in the crypto world, I think it's got to be Litecoin. All right, let's jump over into Forex and see what we can find there.
Absolutely. Well, let's just start with the U.S. dollar, and one of the things that we're talking about is the overall trend. Things have not been moving as aggressively, but you can see that the dollar has been holding in, and since September FOMC meeting, you can see we have made higher highs and a higher lows. Right now, we're just making a little, a flag or a little base pattern, but overall, like if you just want to stick with that trend, I mean, we can see that there's bigger move to the upside, smaller move to the downside. One thing we did notice this week is that, when we had more of a risk-off environment, the dollar didn't really take part of in it. But outside of that, you can see that it is moving on its own. So I still like the dollar to the upside, as long as it stays, at this levels or currently hold that support, prior resistance, which is now support. This is still an uptrend. So in an uptrend, you want to buy the bull pullbacks. That's just the way it is. And velocity, you can see it is -1, but overall, it's holding in a lot better. Now let's talk about the other ones. So yen, as you can see, that yen has been a more of a volatile play. And one of the reasons why is that it's acting as a very nice, around those times when markets are in a turmoil, yen does pick up. And on the contrarian side, when markets are actually reversing, then we see the opposite effect. So just realize that yen is a little bit more tied to the market sentiment. Right now, as you can see, the trend score is a -1. But at the same time, we have seen new lows, and now we are actually rallying up in between the 20 to 50. So I still like the yen to the downside. I think, as long as the markets are not selling off, I think shorting the yen still makes a little bit more sense to me. Now we talk about some of the other currencies that are acting as a safe haven currency. Here's the other one, Swiss franc. And I must say that this is the week where, I was looking at Swiss franc and say, is he going to break that 50 moving average? Remember, very similar to what we talked about in the broader markets. When we are seeing the 50 moving average act as a nice support, you would see a bounce. And that's exactly how the Swiss franc has been moving. So far, as you can see, +2 on a trend. But again, if the market does sell or market reverses the sell-off, or it does extend the sell-off, I think the Swiss franc is likely to respond a little bit better. Same thing with the euro. You can see euro was just not really going anywhere. And then as soon as the risk-off sentiment kicked in, and then we see the euro actually making the highs there. So this is, again, a clear tell that if there is a risk-on environment or risk-off environment, we are going to see money go into some of these European currencies. So that's just the way how this thing is going to play out. And then on the other side, if the market does settle down, we probably see those currencies that I did well around that time will pull back. Here's the pound, and I must say the pound actually held in that support. So I talked about this big channel that we have on a weekly chart. As you can see, this one did bounce off of it. So it's still below that 20 and the 50 moving average. That the trend is still on the low side, but in the shorter term, you can see velocity has been nothing but positive across the board. So European currencies is really where the money has been going into. Now, we also have the Canadian dollar, which, again, I really like it for next week because that's a resistance level that has been kind of holding in. Now, with this, like a better than expected employment report is going to take some pressure off from Bank of Canada to cut rates again. And I think that's going to be a little positive in the shorter term. So nice little flag pattern there. If it does break above the resistance, I really like this going into next week as well. Now, Aussie and the Kiwi is really where the big divergence has been taking place. And you can see that the Aussie is pulling back. It has been weak for the week as the market sentiment turned bearish. So this one again, it's in an uptrend, but getting a little bit pullback. But now when we compare this to the Aussie has been the clear loser, and this thing has dropped the most since March. So usually, when we start to get these extreme readings, like Rob said earlier, this is where you have to start be on the cautious side here and be a little bit on the guard just in case if some things is it going to extend or is it going to bounce here? So right now, there's no signs whatsoever. Aussie Kiwi also, hit the highest level in 13 years. So anybody that's trading for a last decade, you're like, hey, wow, this Aussie Kiwis is at a level that we haven't seen before. So yeah, so some interesting things happening between the Aussie and the Kiwi. And now, I've talked about it before. You want to follow that trend, but when the trend is over, and if we get a blow off top in the Aussie Kiwi, I will make that shift as well. But I think for now, it's pretty clear that Kiwi is more of the underperformer compared to the Aussie.
Thanks for the analysis, Ankit. To me, it's a pretty easy story. As I said earlier, I think everything's very cloudy. But I think once it gets less cloudy, meaning is the market going to bounce off the 50-day moving average? Are we going back into a bullish market condition, or are we going now into panic and higher volatility? I think it's a very easy call. Very easy call. If we go into panic, if the markets continue to drop and we break below the 50-day moving average, Euro Swiss franc. That's where the money's going. That's where the money's going. And, yen will probably be the best, but it doesn't look the best on technicals. So I'm going to go with Euro Swiss franc. So on any bounce, Euro Swiss franc against anything except for yen should work out nicely. Let's say that we get a bounce in equities. All right, if we get a bounce in equities, I think the Euro and Swiss franc weaken. I think the Aussie gets a bid, and I think the CAD gets a bid. I'm about neutral on dollar, so I'm just not looking at dollar. So for me, if the markets bounce, I really like that CAD, number one. Number two is the Aussie. So that is where I'm going to be focusing. But as I said earlier, I'm not focusing on Sunday or Monday. I am sitting back and waiting for things to develop. I do not need to be a hero and stick my neck out on Monday when things just aren't sure, when it's just a coin toss. I'm going to be a little bit patient here for that. So that being said, let's go look at some of those setups. I'm sure Ankit has some different setups to look at as well. Do you want to be a professional trader? Maverick Currencies is the oldest US-based Forex and crypto prop trading company that will pay you for trading with our capital. Trade our capital and keep 70 to 80% of the profits. We are looking for traders just like you that are hardworking and motivated. Click the apply link on the top right of this video to see if you have what it takes. That link takes you to a 4-minute video that explains the trader position available, and you read a list of FAQs that answer pretty much all the basic questions you have at this point. After watching the video and reading the FAQs, if you're interested, fill out an application, then you'll watch the full-length recruiting video, and then schedule an interview with one of our traders. Are you our next trader? Let's start off with pairing Euro Swiss franc to see, okay, which is stronger here, Euro or the Swiss franc? And you can see that the Euro has been stronger than the Swiss franc. Over the past couple hours, they've flattened out. But to me, Euro is the number one currency if the market continues to sell off. Now, this could be an earlier in the week. So again, if we start to get some real heavy selling on Monday, I will be looking to make a trade on Monday, and it will be Euro. The question is Euro against what? Well, I've got two things I like. I like pound and I like Kiwi. Right now, pound is much stronger with the Kiwi with that bounce after the Bank of England. So for me, it's probably going to be Euro Kiwi. Love to see a little bit of a pullback just so I can get a little relief from this last run higher. But if you're taking a look at levels, 204, somewhere in the 204 area is going to be some support. Again, just looking for this to pull back into this 204, 204.50 area. That would be a really nice bull pullback. If we don't get a bull pullback and it looks more like a base, we're probably going to stay in this area. And then it's a buy for breakout above 206. For me, Euro Kiwi is my number one. Let's take a look at something else. Let's take a look at pound Swiss franc. A pound Swiss franc on a daily chart, you can see has been in a clear downtrend. And it falls and falls and falls, and then it has some little bounces and falls, and then has some little bases here like we saw in October, and then we fell again. We're getting a base here. I think it's a little early on a daily chart to really look at this and say it's this going back down. I think it's too early to say that. So because of that, I'm looking at this chart saying, okay, there's not really a setup here in this one. This has everything I don't like. I like to see falling moving averages. I like to see RSI below 50. I'm just not getting any of that. So for me, Euro Kiwi is going to be at the top of the list. Anka, what do you want to take a look at?
Hey Rob, well, like I said, the first thing I'll take a look at, again, same idea. If market does rally, then Euro CAD. I'll look for those things that did really well today, and this week that'll be likely to turn. So here's a good example. While Rob we've been speaking and doing our class, I see market moving, and it looks like the Democrat has laid out a proposal to end the shutdown. And you can see, Rob, if you want to zoom into a little bit shorter term time frame, exactly what you're seeing, things are rolling over, where are the things that did the really best. And again, these are the like an easy trade, I would say, because you're just playing the theme. And right now, you can see that in the last just the last few minutes, it's been just nothing but moving down. So it's pretty clear that if the market sort of stabilize a little bit here, let's just say the shutdown ends next week, EuroCAD, I think, has a decent chance to do that as well. Again, this one made a lower low and a lower high, so it kind of meets that criteria. So I do like this one along with the pound CAD, Rob, if you want to pull that one up. Again, I'm looking at things that could really break out, and I think if the CAD is the one, I would love to kind of use these bear rallies that we're getting here as a shorting opportunity. So it all comes down to the market sentiment. If the market sentiment stabilize and be positive, I think we can start to look at some reversals. And CAD yen, all the yen crosses too, I think we'll kind of do the exact same thing. I still like yen to the downside. I think you just have to be mindful of the market volatility and on that. And Rob, if you want to compare even the CAD yen, the dollar yen, if you want to take a look at, I still like the dollar yen to the upside. I mean, on a daily chart, all you have is a little wide range that you're dealing with, but still holding that level. And this is again one of those things that just trading in a little wider range. But I think we will likely to see the yen underperform if the market does better, or if we see a shutdown ends next week, and I think market could return back to a little bit of a normal environment.
Let's wrap this up. Okay, I said earlier that, I think it's a coin toss. What happens with equities? That's not actually true. And I wanted to wait till the end to really talk about this. That I've been trading for a very long time. I've seen massive bull markets. I've seen massive bear markets. I've seen sideways markets. I'm sure I haven't seen all the markets because there's probably a new one out there. But here's what I've learned in my 28 years of trading. Trends last longer than you think. And if you're thinking to yourself, this is the end of the uptrend, you probably thought that last month, the month before, and you probably either missed a lot of good trades or you took a lot of bad trades in your belief that the trend was over. You could be looking at this whole AI bubble saying, oh, the AI bubble popped. Maybe. Here's what I've learned. It's better off if you just assume it's going to continue. We're getting a pullback to the 50-day moving average. I have no idea if the government is going to be shut down or reopened. I have no idea what's going to happen. I have no idea. But here's what I do know. Of all the hundreds and maybe even thousands of times I've seen a pullback to a 50-day moving average, most of them bounced. Most of them bounced, and it was a really good place to get in. So I do think this market bounces, but that is my opinion. I'm going to wait for confirmation, which every one of you should do as well. Okay, just wait till Tuesday, Wednesday. Just wait till Tuesday, Wednesday on that bounce. You don't need to be the first one there. It's going to be a nice bounce if this truly still is a bull market. So focus on the currencies, be patient up for that signal, but when that signal comes, go ahead and take it. Everyone have a great weekend. Goodbye, everyone.